Hello, my name is Mauro Tilocca with Telecom Italia. I'm a member of the Broadband Forum Board of Directors, and I'm also the chairman of the Service Provider Action Council. I'm here with Ken Coe.
Hi, I'm Ken Combe with EdTran. I am the work area director, one of the work area directors for the SDN and NFV work area.
And Yves Ertkoek.
Hi there, Yves Ertkoek with VMware, and I'm the project stream leader for the Cloud Central Office project within BBF.
And today we're going to talk about the Cloud Central Office project. So first question, what is the Cloud Central Office and what does it bring to the industry?
Well, I think that the name almost gets self-explanatory. It is bringing the cloud into the CO, bringing cloud capabilities into the CO, the benefits of virtualization, flow control, all of the functional flexibility that goes along with that, as well as the ability to really disaggregate and redefine some of the functional pieces in the way that makes the most sense as we go forward.
Okay. Yves.
Yeah, not really much to add there, but essentially, I mean, some people see it as the combination of kind of two industry buzz terms, being software-defined networking, SDN, network functional virtualization, NFV, because effectively those two really have to go hand in hand. But in order for it to be even more consumable, i.e. that you can actually have a third party plug into the system, you also need cloud as well. So the entire cloud idea where people can go to a UI or can go to an API and just bring up things over an infrastructure, and those things being broadband services, that's going to be what Cloud Central Office is going to be realizing.
Okay, so this is about a big transformation into the networks and the way services are going to be provisioned. So what are the key challenges that we're going to address with this project?
Well, it's actually one of the biggest transformations that we've seen in a very long time at the network edge. We're talking about really a very major restructuring of what's happening in the central office, and that obviously brings with it challenges with regard to migration, because you don't just replace everything at the edge of a network at the same time. It brings questions of how do you allow new technologies and old technologies to coexist. I'll let Yves talk about some of the challenges that go into bringing the virtual infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure into the CO to begin with.
Yes, I think it would be great if you could help us understand what are really the pitfalls and advantages in driving this kind of migration, which I think is a key element in the project.
Right, so NFV has been kind of seen as the big savior of the world in a way, but essentially network function virtualization can really only work if it's also enabled through an infrastructure underneath that effectively can deliver the services in a meaningful way. So CloudCO does this by effectively putting typical cloud aspects, I mean compute nodes, a typical kind of leaf spine architecture into the CO, effectively almost replacing all of the legacy equipment that is typically inside a CO, and therefore effectively we can start consuming services on top of that. And obviously the challenge there is going to be, as you already were saying, Ken, this is going to be kind of turning the world a little bit upside down in a sense. It's a totally new paradigm, and obviously we have to make sure the world understands and kind of help them, and also help the vendor community out there, which will be bringing together those systems, of actually building those systems for the future. We've seen lots of open source projects being started on this, and that's extremely valuable because people are testing it out, but effectively it will typically be one player which will be implementing that open source project into his network, and interoperability is not really conceived from the beginning. So I think what BBF is trying to do is come up with a system that actually creates interoperability by default, such that system integrators can show value as well going forward.
Okay, now I know that the project is already well thought and have a number of sub-projects that are going to put a number of pieces together. Can you elaborate on that? You were talking about open source, meaning open source generates some reference implementations of systems. What is the added value that we're going to build with the project itself in terms of reference implementation and standardized interfaces?
So essentially, as you were saying, so the first couple of phases will kind of focus on what is the system, what are the functional modules inside the system, what are the interfaces connecting them. So we'll describe basically how things work. But at the same time, in parallel, we're also going to be implementing a reference implementation, and there are a couple of others out there in the open source community. So effectively, we will build a reference implementation which will ultimately allow, for example, virtual network function vendors to plug into that implementation live, because we're going to be having it running live, to test their applications. We're going to be allowing system integrators to kind of show how their piece of the implementation can actually work within the system. And effectively, this will just foster interoperability in the market massively.
So in a sense, it's going to produce also as a secondary effect a playground, let me call it like that, for an ecosystem to evolve, which I think is another key aspect in the network transformation and evolution that we're talking about.
Some people call it playground, sandbox. There are various words which are used, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
And that's one of the most, one of the most important aspects of this. Having a reference infrastructure that provides, that allows us to do things like interoperability testing and such at the network function level, because then service providers, system integrators, function vendors can all work together on this and can all work through this interoperable system and where they fit into the system and how they can use the system, and they can differentiate at the functional level. They can test different approaches. There are a lot of advantages to this, and it benefits all of the players in the system, and through that will benefit the end users too, because what we'll end up with is a flexible system where you've got a thriving community of suppliers and service providers who have different ways to differentiate their offerings. And when you've got different ways to differentiate the offerings and new offerings to provide, the end users are going to win.
Yeah, which is something that service providers certainly look for in reviewing their service and business paradigm. So this is certainly terrific. I mean, I look forward to that. Yesterday we had a very inspiring brainstorming session that it really shows that there is a great traction for this project. I look forward certainly to see how it goes on, but certainly there is great enthusiasm around this initiative, which is, I would say, a sort of new flagship project for the Broadband Forum. So if you have no more notes, I would like to thank you very much for your inputs today, and thanks for the great work.
Thank you, Maro.
Thank you.
Thank you.